Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earle, and here are today's topics. Manchester City perhaps slamming the door shut on Chelsea's title hopes thanks to Kevin De Bruyne's superb goal at the Etihad. Liverpool keeping pace as best they can after dismantling Brentford at Anfield. A dream return to the Premier League for Philippe Coutinho as he and Aston Villa spoil Man United's bright start. And Rafa Benitez out as Everton manager after the Toffees fell 2-1 at Norwich City. That's what we've got coming up on today's episode. But before, my friend, we get to the games that did happen this weekend, we thought one of the biggest games that we may have started this podcast with was the North London Derby, Spurs versus Arsenal. The game postponed because of Arsenal's camp and too many COVID, too many injured, too many away, suspended. Now, this one's been really pushed back from Spurs, and they made a statement about this, Rob, and I understand where they're coming from. The whole point of the kind of rule of 13 outfield players and a goalkeeper, and you've got to play the game, was all based on clubs having a real big problem with COVID. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players we've seen at other clubs affected, which obviously affects your ability to put out a side. But this one was different because only one player, when the game was requested to be postponed by Arsenal, was affected by COVID. The rest was Africa Cup of Nations, suspensions, injuries, meant that they didn't have the requisite number of players to play. Now, rules are rules. I get that. And the Premier League are well aware of the rules, Rob. But and I don't know whether you can change mid-season now, because teams have worked around these rules, and teams have been thrown out there by other clubs that threw under 21 players out there to get a team. It feels wrong because only one COVID case affected this, Rob. I mean, this was not. Is this just a loophole, or
this isn't what the Premier League designed this postponement and the protocol in place for? So you've got people at African Cup of Nations, you get somebody suspended, you put 2 players out on loan, and you've got one COVID case. That doesn't seem to me. Feels a bit like the clubs, and it's not just Arsenal, Rob. Arsenal is come to light because of this situation. But clubs are almost manipulating the situation. It looks to me like clubs are looking and thinking, what state are we in? Or are we got enough fit? No, let's go for the COVID thing. And that's not right. And that will skew the league and change and challenge the integrity of the league when we finish. If we think, well, some teams got a rest then, and then they got a full team out when they played. And Ralph Hasenhüttl has talked about it, Rob, hasn't he? He's gone quite strong in saying about, the players that were available to play at the game time should only be the players who play. So if you bring somebody in new, a new signing shouldn't be able to play in a game that's postponed because he wouldn't have been able to play during that period. Now, how you're going to police and manage that, I do not know. But I understand the sentiments, and I just feel as though we just have to be careful with this game and this league that we love and that we promote and report on doesn't lose a little bit of its integrity. That teams are seeming to know what to do to get a game called off for a week or two before they're in better shape.
Yeah, and it's difficult, Rob, for the Premier League to send officials to clubs, examining who's injured, examining who's had this little lateral flow test on this little piece of plastic thing that they use right now, and it's just, it's not great, and I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, Rob. I suppose the rules are the rules, and Arsenal say, "Well, we can't field a team." Anyway, let's move on from that. Frustrating because we all want to see that North London Derby,
absolutely,
and particularly Spurs the way they reacted to it. Okay, but we did see a big game in the Premier League, Rob, affecting first and second. Manchester City 1, Chelsea 0. A Kevin De Bruyne strike from around the edge of the box. A wonderful goal with quality and intelligence and superb technique from Kevin De Bruyne, gives them a 13-point lead over Chelsea. First of all, let's get to the big question. Does this mean that Chelsea can't win the Premier League title from here?
Yeah, for me, Rob, it was that clear cut. It was that important. I just think if you're 13 points behind Manchester City at this stage, the kind of run you're going to have to go on, the kind of run that they're going to have to endure isn't going to happen. We've seen Pep Guardiola in this team, Rob. It isn't going to happen. So this was a huge game to cut the gap to 7, to give themselves a chance in the race or to be pretty much put out of it. And I think it's more the latter. I think you can tell from Tuchel's reaction after the game and quite a strong interview, we'll talk about that. I think the players realised that it wasn't. And for parts of the first half, Rob, although Chelsea weren't particularly playing well, part of the game plan was working. Part of the game plan of getting midfield on to break things up, to hit balls early and find space was working up until technically and tactically they didn't quite deliver the right ball, the right pass down the sides, in behind when Manchester City pulled, and they did win possession. If they had scored a goal, we could be talking about a very different result, because at that stage I'm thinking, this is good, Chelsea. This is a good way to play Manchester City, and opportunities were there. Again, we'll talk about those, but it didn't happen. City weathered the storm or whatever, got away with what they needed to in the first half with domination of possession, got a brilliant goal, and march on.
Yeah, I agree. I think the way to play Man City, when they're as confident and they're playing as well in their football as they are right now, really, I can't think of many other teams around the world that could go toe-to-toe, basically, and play on the front foot, be expansive, not be defensively kind of deep. And Chelsea were deep, and we knew that the rhythm of the game was going to be that way. But I think Lee Dixon said it multiple times in commentary, Rob, and I totally agreed. There was space to play balls in behind. Now, you don't get that opportunity very often because Man City's counter-press and the way they win the ball back doesn't allow many Chelsea midfield players to receive the ball and to look up and make that ball in. It happened in the second half of Lukaku going through, but in the first half, they had not many looks, but there were some looks, and they didn't do it. They went to feet or they get sideways and sideways. So I thought that as well as Chelsea were defending and looked pretty strong and restricted City to very few opportunities, really, Rob, apart from the big Jack Grealish chance. I mean, my first half notes were, okay, City, we know this is going to be the pattern, but what's been created here? What's been created? And a Mateo Kovacic mistake from trying to play out. And fair play to City, that's part of what they do is to pressurise. Jack Grealish, the chance that I mean, he's got to score, really. I mean, I know it's a decent save, but he's got to score there. That was the only really moment in the first half, Rob, that could have been defining and could have created a goal. Grealish missed it. And second half, it kind of changed a little bit. And then Lukaku had a chance.
47 minutes on the clock, Rob. 2 minutes into the second half. He gets a chance that all that work you've been doing, all the tactics you set up, all the kind of suffering you got to go through, there's your moment.
And that was the ball, Rob. And that was the ball through. That's exactly what they didn't do in the first half. He gets played in, and he doesn't take his opportunity. We'll talk about Lukaku a little bit further, more in depth, Rob, in a minute. But after that, again, you know, then it comes down to Kevin De Bruyne later on. It makes a brilliant goal and 1-0 as a result. And we all talk about City's greatness and Chelsea's kind of struggles, if you like. But it could have been a little different given some of these chances. Just on Romelu Lukaku then, Rob, let's get cracking on him.
Yeah.
You tell everybody what Thomas Tuchel said.
Well, Thomas Tuchel was asked after the game about did they create enough chances? With it almost like, are they playing to Lukaku's strength? Is there more we should do to provide for him? And he was quite strong, Thomas Tuchel, in that, yes, the team can do better, but Romelu can do better himself. He can do more for making service. He talked about and criticising, and I actually agreed with him. I'd made a couple of notes in the first half, Rob, where his build-up play was loose, Lukaku. Gave the ball away a number of times when his team needed him to hold it and join people in. And then the biggest point of all is when you pay $135 million for a striker, when you've won the Champions League and you say the missing piece, the reason why people like Robbie Mustoe will say Chelsea got a chance to win the title, is because you buy Romelu Lukaku. And you buy Romelu Lukaku to score you 20-plus goals, and in the big games, in the big moments, Romelu Lukaku has to get you a goal. And in the big game, in the big moment, when he's one-on-one with Ederson, he misses that opportunity. Right there changed the game for me, Rob. Right there was Chelsea being 1-0 up, being able to defend. City now will have to maybe open up a little bit. It feels a different game to me. And I just the reason I've always felt with Lukaku, and he's so much better than he was at Manchester United. We know his game's developed, but I still think he's a bit streaky, and I'm never quite as sure. He's not Sergio Aguero, is he? He's not that guy that you totally believe in a one-on-one.
I would. I mean, again, it seems a little unfair, really, but all we heard about when Lukaku came back to Chelsea, Rob, is how his game's developed, how great he's become in small spaces because of the way that the Italians kind of defend very deep and very tactical. Now, again, for those that love Lukaku and will blame the manager more, I understand. And this, we could get into this if we wanted to, Rob. The Tuchel style, the football style, not so much in this game because it's against Man City, but generally it's kind of slow build-up and controlling. And they manoeuvre up the field, and they're very high, and they keep the ball going across, and they have great control, and they defend with the ball fine. I don't think, and I'm going to throw it back to you in a second, that helps the forwards at this football club. Because sitting here right now, in January, I still don't know who the best front three is for Chelsea. We don't know. He's tried everybody. Pulisic back in the side, and Ziyech I thought was poor. But we still don't really. You could argue, Rob, that all the front players, Werner, Havertz, all of them, are struggling a little with this slow football. Now, we've enjoyed this football, and I like that control. But I think the more you think about it, Havertz hasn't really done it. Werner's not really done it. I mean, Mount's been good, but more of a midfield player. And we know, before I throw it to you, we know that Lukaku is better running from out to in and making those runs in behind. But as a $130 million player, Rob, he's got to be better at doing the hold-up play. I thought some of his hold-up play and his passing was really poor, given what we expect from him. So back on that point about the attacking play, Rob, and with Chelsea being slow, and that allows, of course, teams to get back. They can funnel in. They can get their 5-4-1 or whatever they want to play, 4-4-2, in a really strong shape. It makes it difficult for the front players to do their thing when there's very little space around them or in behind to make those runs.
That said, we still go back to he has the one-on-one chance that he should score. I agree with you that we're not sure about who are what's the right mix. COVID hasn't helped, injuries to some, etc. Has not helped repetition and continuity that Tuchel would like. It begs the question, Rob, then, a little bit of what you're saying, and it was something Danny touched on. Danny was quite strong in saying he didn't think that Lukaku was Tuchel's man. He thinks it was almost like a club signing or somebody else brought him in and said, here's your guy.
Can I just answer that, Rob, straight away? Well, I think this club doesn't sign anybody purely based on what the manager wants. That's the whole point of this club, isn't it? I mean, there's directors of football there. There's a recruitment of this football club that I think, irrespective of who the manager is. Now, there might be occasions where a manager might suggest and poke and prod and try and get somebody. But I think on the most part, the club will not be dictated to, like many others are, in terms of who they sign. Because what's the point of allowing managers to have their picks of signings when they're probably going to last for 2 years or less? We know the rotations at Chelsea. It's not about the manager building things. It's about a manager coming in and coaching the team. So I would disagree that, is this a Tuchel signing? He's a club signing.
Yeah.
The club. That's the bulk of the decisions are club-based and not manager, or really I should say head coach-based at Chelsea.
Yeah, so that being said, and I don't disagree with the point, Thomas Tuchel then has to do a better job with Romelu Lukaku. Early in the season, Rob, we saw signs of Lukaku, we saw signs of Mount and Ziyech and a bit of Pulisic and Werner. What we say, this looks interesting. This could be dangerous. And we haven't seen it on a consistent basis. Now, if Tuchel's job is to coach the quality of players that are brought to him by the football club, then you'd have to say he isn't doing a very good job, or the job being done with Romelu Lukaku is not going to plan at this stage.
Or Rob, well, just finally on this, or you expect more from Romelu Lukaku to play in all different styles.
That's what I'm saying.
In all different ways.
I'm saying if you're playing a $135 million striker, I think you have some adaptation, and I just don't think it's quite fit. It's quite worked because I don't think he's playing that well.
Yeah. Just a quick line before we move on, Rob, on Manchester City now. I mean, 56 points in different ways, different midfield players scoring.
Yeah.
I mean, it's our chats on Man City, Rob. I mean, it's more fun to get into details of when things aren't going well. When you're as grooved and as good and as consistent as Man City are, and rotating the players like they do, ins and outs, and people coming in, and Diaz didn't start, like, what? Eh? In a game like this. There's just fewer things to say about Man City apart from the same, wow, grooved, brilliant play, control, at it, goalkeeper makes a save when you want him to, and somebody, Rob, steps up in midfield to score the goals. Whoever it is, it was De Bruyne this time. Is there anything we see in them, Rob, that suggests, and I would just throw out there as a flipping wild stab in the dark, that the first 20 minutes, half an hour of the game, they didn't look like scoring too much with a strong, and that was my kind of thought at the start of the season, which has been totally proved wrong. That there'd be more games like the first half an hour where they'd be play, but not score and not create the gilt-edged chances to put them ahead in games. Obviously, they've done that. But is there anything in the future, Rob, what might change the situation right now with their dominance?
It's hard to say. You're picking, you're nitpicking, to be honest, Rob.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, didn't have too many real clear-cut looks. The Jack Grealish one, Jack should take. Informed Jack, playing well, should take that. You 1-0 up. The football still dominates. You've got to remember Mahrez could possibly play and would be part of it. They still got Jesus who can come on. So many different ways they can do it, Rob. I thought Sterling looked nice and sharp, gave Alonso problems early on, got him a yellow card. So now, and Pep was interesting. I listened to his interview last night when I got back and gave a lot of praise to his group and said, 12 straight wins, gap at the top, he said. Biggest thing about this group is their hunger, their desire, their drive, their training, their motivated group. You know, we've heard Cristiano Ronaldo this week talking about United and the lack of motivation and the drive in that dressing room. Pep said this group it deserves more credit than it gets for what it does. You know, is it something like the 5th time now they've gone on this 11, 12 game kind of winning run in league football under Pep? It's remarkable. And I just, for thinking about it last night, I'm thinking, who am I going to go my underappreciated player if it's not somebody today? And somebody came to mind, Robbie Musson, and I want you to bear with me on this one. Ederson, the goalkeeper. Okay, let me talk about being a Manchester City goalkeeper, basically. You could be doing what we're doing at the moment, sit on a chair and watch things go on. Because you don't have very much to do, Rob. For 90 minutes, you have not much to do, which actually makes his job harder. Because when you do have to do something, you've got to be right in terms of concentration, right with your decision-making, and be sort of fresh enough and nimble enough to deal with the situation. Mental and physical sort of alertness and being ready. Ederson has that. I looked at his numbers, Rob. He's played 166 Premier League games. He's got 83 clean sheets. 50% of the games he's played in the Premier League, he's kept a clean sheet. He also can get on the ball and bang it anyway. And yes, I know you can tell me about the defenders in front of him and don't have much to do and they defend with the ball and all that, and I get it. Let me also tell you the one big thing that happened. When he was needed for his team yesterday, when Romelu Lukaku went through after 47 minutes, came up with a brilliant big save that changed the game, that gave City the platform to go on. And that's why I think for all that we talk about City and the greatness and the passing and the movement, they've got a goalkeeper back there who doesn't have to do much, but when he's called on, generally does a good job of what he's got to do.
Don't mind it, Rob. And I tell you what, also, excuse me, our listeners or viewers on YouTube here, whether they probably do realise that, and it probably is appreciated, his ability on the ball to pass it is...
On the ball. He's a central midfield player playing in goal.
He has got fantastic technique, vision, awareness, weight on his passing, decision-making, because deciding what to do. Shall I go into midfield? Shall I go to fullback? Or shall I clip it up? Or shall I play it over the top? I mean, that maybe is underappreciated. Yeah. I don't think it is because we talk about it a lot, but his ability on the ball is phenomenal. So, yeah, I mean, it's difficult, Robert, when you see a game and City win and you try and pick out an underappreciated, it's like, well, pretty much all these players are are appreciated now. There's not really many that are particularly underappreciated, but to pick out maybe a part of his game that is a good shout, and his concentration levels to stay making those big saves when it's needed is really, really important. Yes, it's a good shout.
Okay, my friend, let's move on to Anfield. Playing today, probably the last hope in a title race, really, for us neutrals and those who want things to go into Easter and further. Liverpool, not in great form. No one's in three for them. Faced a Brentford team that I think we all remember the 3-3 at the Community Stadium. Late goals and Thomas Frank and Jurgen Klopp hugging at the end. There was 3 goals for Liverpool. There were none for Brentford. How do you see this one, Rob? It was a pretty strong Liverpool team, obviously minus Mane, Salah and Keita. How do you see this one? Obviously, Jota and Oxlade-Chamberlain played up front with Bobby Firmino. Curtis Jones played his first game, I think it's October, in the midfield. And Trent was back and Robbo was back in those fullback positions.
Well, I saw it as an awkward game for Liverpool at Anfield against Brentford that I think are, and the result shows it, like they're not a great team. I just think they're a dangerous team because the front 2 players that they've got, they're starting to flag a little bit, I would say, Brentford now. Particularly bad, weren't they, against Southampton in the week? I remember doing that game. Yeah. And they're drifting down the table a little bit. But they made it kind of difficult for Liverpool. And I thought Liverpool, again, it was a little difficult for them to find their flow going forward. And I think, as this game showed, the first goal is everything, really. Yeah. The first goal is everything. There was just a few little, not moans and groans from at Anfield, but the struggles in their attacking areas, it wasn't great. The final ball wasn't good. I'm not sure that, and I know he scored a goal, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Rob, is going to be the answer in one of those higher roles. I know that they've got to put somebody up there, and Minamino played in the last game, I think, and didn't look particularly good.
In the Cup, League Cup.
And of course, those 2 players actually scored in this game. So, I know that. I realise that. I'm just before the goal went in, and unfortunately for Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's gone off injured. Yeah. But I thought he struggled to have an impact in that area. But maybe it's going to take them a little bit of time to get used to playing again in those wide positions that obviously always filled with Mane and Mo Salah. Yeah. So the first goal, everything changes. Everything changes from the first goal. Then Brentford are losing. They're going to be a little less dogged in defending. They've got to come out a little bit more. No surprise then that the second and third goal comes. Yeah. And in the second half, it's like, cigars on. It's nice and easy for Liverpool. No drama. 3-0. Thank you very much. One game done without the 2 star players. I look at what they've got next, Rob. They've got Palace, Leicester, Burnley and Norwich. Now, I'm sure in those 4 games, those 2 players will be returning because it depends on how well their nations do in the competition over there. So not an awful schedule going forward. This is the first step of Liverpool trying, as we said right at the start from the topics, that they've got to try and stay in touch with Manchester City, Rob, because City have played all the games. They've got all the points. And it makes it so hard for the teams chasing. If any time they make a mistake, it feels like it's going to be all over. So no drama. At the end, easy peasy. Strong Liverpool, good Liverpool. Great to get goals from Minamino and Oxlade-Chamberlain. Yeah. But that's, it wasn't always great in the first half.
No. Just a thought, Rob, and we touched on it with Beck, and I thought I'll run this one past you and get your thoughts on. Where do you see Jurgen Klopp in domestic cups? Because it's also a big week. Thursday, they got this second leg of the semi-final against Arsenal in the League Cup, which is 0-0 at the moment. After that, they followed up with Cardiff in the FA Cup. We know the league, Champions League kicks back in a month or so's time. With the games and with players, do you think Jurgen Klopp still has his eye on domestic cups, or he's always seemed to me as though he's not given those too much priority, as though the league and the Champions League. Do you feel at this stage, A, that he will, or B, should he be done? Liverpool evolved. The Liverpools we grew up with won some league titles and won some FA Cups as well. And Beck's made a decent point today, I thought, with Chelsea. Said Chelsea have continued to win things, win a domestic cup here and there. Every year they kind of usually find something. Is that something Liverpool could do more? Will the squad allow? Should a little bit more attention be given to the domestic cups?
It's actually a really good point, Robert, a good question. My initial reaction is, if you're Liverpool and you're the fans right now, I think to target the Premier League and the Champions League with your best teams, with your most focus, with your strongest lineup, with your players in the best fettle, if you like, or fitness levels, is the right way to go for Liverpool, right? But I agree. Chelsea do it a little bit differently. They've won more titles. All I would say, Rob, is that if Liverpool trip up over the next week or two and feel, quite honestly, that that's a real tough stretch to reach Man City, then maybe that changes. Maybe you're right. Maybe, like, you know what, let's be a little bit more, let's take a few more risks in the competitions, play stronger sides in the league. Well, the League Cup's almost done, isn't it? Semi-final, second leg point. But the FA Cup is you ain't got to tell us what the FA Cup is, mate. We grew up watching it as flipping, tiny kids all the way through for me to play in a final there with my shirt, FA Cup final right behind me. So I think Liverpool fans would love Liverpool to really go for the FA Cup. Yeah. If again, it's a big if, they fall even further behind, I think it's a good point, and something, given that league position, surely Jurgen Klopp would target the FA Cup, as he's going to, of course, in the Champions League as well, when that kicks back off again in February. But I think, it's interesting. It's interesting. And it's all the more impressive with Chelsea that they've managed to win trophies and European Cups and FA Cups and league titles. It's pretty good. And, of course, City, they do it their way. They've got such a big squad. They can rotate. They still have great teams to win the League Cup almost every year. So good point. Good point. Yeah, and it's going to be one to watch over the next couple of weeks.
Let's take things to Villa Park. Exciting day. Everybody looking forward to the Philippe Coutinho new signing. He was unveiled. He started on the bench. Coutinho signed, I think, on Thursday in time to play. He started. We'll talk about Dino and Everton next, and Rafa Benitez. But concentrating on Villa, Stevie G against Manchester United. They played in the Cup just, I think, a few days before on the Monday. And United won that 1-0, but not convincing by any means. And I think Villa gave them a good game. And then there was a lot of attention on what Ralf Rangnick was going to do with his Manchester United team, how he was going to set them up, how they were going to play. Are we going to see some progression? What do you think?
Well, it's a funny one. And it's funny because obviously the majority of things I've read and I've watched and I've heard from people and former players and pundits and analysts and stuff have pretty much poo-pooed Ralf Rangnick, Rob. And, multiple times I've heard, can't see what he's doing, don't see anything different. Yeah. Don't know what he's there for, blah, 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 blah. I might be wrong, mate, but I think I can see what he's trying to do. I think I can. And, of course, it's not a great scoreline. We'll get on to Villa, but, Villa is absolutely bouncing right now, by the way. That's not an easy game to go with that atmosphere, with the team, how it's progressing the team. Yeah. Like you, Rob, and I saw your reaction at half-time to Man United. I thought the first half, of course, wasn't spectacular. Yeah. This Man United team under him is not as fluid. It's not as capable, maybe, of spectacular moments. I think he's trying to make it more efficient. I think he's trying to make it more organised. I think he's trying to make it more compact. I see Greenwood and Elanga in this game much closer to fullbacks. I see a better shape in the first half. In the second half, of course, it all went away. Tiredness, whatever. Credit to Villa. You've got to give him for that. But he's got to start somewhere, Ralf Rangnick, Rob. And I know he's had 10 games now. And I know it's a very difficult job. But if you're going to try and make them more of a not an up-and-down team, is what he said. And I totally agree with that. Up and down United, you're going to get some flowing and some goals and some comebacks and maybe more entertaining, more fun games. But that's not really the way that United should be going. I see him trying to structure the team more. And the systems change a little bit. It doesn't really matter, Rob. This was more of a 4-4-2. It doesn't really matter. Bruno Fernandes, 4-4-1-1, I would probably say is more accurate, Bruno dropping in. So, particularly in the first half, obviously in the first half, I saw that, even if I didn't see amazing football and people moaning on social media, this isn't Man United and what have we become? We're a mess. The guy's trying to do something, and that's how I feel. Obviously, particularly about the first half. What did you feel?
Yeah, I think we agree on that. I saw a better organisation. I saw a better relationship between players. It was interesting. I said to Danny, it looks a couple of times to me as though he doesn't expect Cavani to do too much running. So at times Cavani anchored and Bruno would go and Fred would go either side of him to go and close down a centre-back, almost getting Cavani ready for if they did win the ball, then he'd be the player they played through. So tactically, you start to see some of the work that's been done on the training ground. So Langer was lively in Greenwood on those wide areas, at least brought a bit of youthful energy to the team. You know, having seen Rashford of late, who's looked a bit laboured. So, yeah, for 45 minutes, I thought was good. Second half started, didn't particularly play well. You expected a reaction from Villa, who were poor, in all honesty. They get the second goal, Rob, and then, again, I think we can all have our reasons and think why. I think fitness is a bit of an issue for them to play with the intensity that he would really like. Then you start talking about game management and sort of understanding everybody's roles when you get 2-0 up. I think that's still got to be grooved better. Because from 2-0 up to allow the game to go away 2-2 in a game, we'll credit Villa and talk about Coutinho and the impact of Stevie G. But if you're 2-0 up, Rob, 70 minutes, you're Manchester United, that should be 3 points, really.
Well, yeah, either way, Rob, and I've just made a quick note there not to forget about it. Either way, that you maintain this shape in this organisation and make it difficult for Villa, and or you keep the ball.
Yeah.
You keep the ball, and for I don't know how many months and years now we've been talking that this Man United team with some of the individuals aren't brilliant at keeping the ball. So those two reasons, and mostly Villa's intensity, Rob, in that second half, the pressure. I mean, they're going to fly back at you, and I tend to give them a ton of credit for what they did. Philippe Coutinho, sure. I mean, it's coming onto the field, Rob, and having an immediate impact in the first goal. I don't think he gets the assist. I think he gets nudged.
Fred nudged it off him,
Did he nudge it to Jacob Ramsey? And then scores the goal. He slides in. I mean, it was fantastic. I mean, you look at this Villa team, Rob, and what Steven Gerrard's trying to do, with Dina coming into Football Club, Coutinho, Matty Cash is a great player. You've got good Douglas Luiz in midfield. You've got an Ollie Watkins. He's slowly, and the club is slowly trying to put together a really talented, entertaining team. And we'll see what happens to Coutinho at the end of the season, and actually between now and the end of the season, how his performances are, and can he consistently do this? Because if he does consistently add assists and goals, then they're going to want to sign him, and that's particularly exciting. So I think that's my takeaway back on Man United, Rob, is that it potentially is going to get worse before it gets better. Lots of players in this line, of course, Ronaldo not being there, Rashford. There's lots of others missing, but I'm not one to immediately throw this guy out, Ralf Rangnick, as somebody that shouldn't be there or coaching. I can see he's trying to create a better team and not a team of individuals that we've been saying for a while now. And
just let me pick up on before, because I think you're going to go to a place. Just on Stevie G, Rob, and I think something we've touched on, and the more I'm watching and obviously keeping a close eye on his development in the Premier League as a manager, because I just think these big things ahead for Stevie. But the things that impressed me with him, Rob, is I thought they weren't very good first off, and they weren't at it, and the atmosphere, was great before the kick-off, and then the players allowed it to drop. He affects games, Rob. He affects half times when I see Villa come out, they're different. Sometimes you see a manager and you think, first half was poor, second half nothing changes. With Steven Gerrard, things change in his teams. He makes good substitutions, Rob, that affect games, that make things happen, that assist, that score, that change the shape. Did a nice, clever thing with Coutinho and Buendia, played them like 2 10s underneath Watkins and Ings, when you'd have thought maybe one of those comes off for Coutinho. So, clever thoughts and winning, numerical advantage in that midfield to hurt United's press and their ability to come out. So, I just think that, again, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Steven Gerrard. Danny made an interesting point to me. He says, I think it was Danny who said, you get Coutinho, that's put more pressure on Stevie G. And I said, I think Stevie G's one of them who's like, that's good. I want the pressure. I want to be the best I can be, and if that means I've got to take big players and take gambles or risks, that some people will think, I think he's happy to do that.
Yeah, I think I said that, Rob, to you. Maybe the last podcast about that, like expectation levels would go up, and they certainly are going up. I'm really enjoying what he's doing, Rob, and I agree with a lot of things you just said there. I'm just a bit cautious about. I want to see him in a bad run, and how he gets out of it, and how everybody reacts to.
Well, they were on a bit of a bad run, weren't they? They
kind of are. They've won one in the last 5, I think, at Villa. They've had some difficult games, but one win in the last 5 is not great. So they've got to get back to winning ways. But he's got new players. And I thought Coutinho looked good as well. But I'll tell you what, Rob, this is why we do this underappreciated thing, where we all know who made the biggest impact here. It was Philippe Coutinho. And he's the easy guy to go to for a star player, but I'm not. I'm going to go for Jacob Ramsey, a 20-year-old midfield player that came through the academy, scored a goal, really took it well with his left foot, and then creates a goal for Coutinho with a stunning first-time ball with his left foot across the middle of the box. Jacob Ramsey from midfield. He probably has been underappreciated. I'm telling everybody right now that we should continue to watch out for Jacob Ramsey at that age, with that desire and hunger at that football club. And with a manager like Steven Gerrard, who can tell him everything he needs to know and then some about midfield play, particularly getting forward and scoring goals and doing and those creative passes, is going to be really interesting to watch. So Jacob Ramsey wins my underappreciated performer of the week, and it's a player that we all should take a real good look at and see how he develops at this very exciting Aston Villa team. Yeah,
it's a great point, and I think it's one of the reasons Steven Gerrard was enticed by the Villa job. That it's a club that won the FA Youth Cup last season, got a lot of youngsters. Jacob Ramsey, believe it or not, is one of 3 brothers. I think he's the oldest of 3. His other 2 young brothers in the academy. Connie Chukwuemeka is in the academy as well. He's got a brother in there. So there's some good local talent that Steven Gerrard can match with, signings, decent signings of the Coutinho and Dino levels. And Steven Gerrard talked about the Ramseys of the world will learn from being around Philippe Coutinho. He'll be a better player for playing with Philippe Coutinho. So, really good mix. Great pick out, because Coutinho is the one with the headlines and, the ex-Barcelona, ex-Liverpool. But Jacob Ramsey is quietly going about his business really well and having a big impact on the team, Rob. Just before we move on this one, there's just one thing I want to run past you. There was some suggestions out there in the media that Anthony Martial refused to go on the bench for Manchester United. The manager came out and said he asked Martial, and Martial refused. Martial, this morning, I believe, has come out on Twitter, denied that, said he would never do that, disrespect the club, the fans, and his teammates. A spat, Rob, that I don't think is necessary. A spat that I'm a bit scratching my head as to who to believe and whose benefit in this. Where are you with this one?
Well, it's kind of who do you believe type of thing. It's difficult to get to the bottom of this. I would say, Rob, right, in our experience and in my experience, if a manager comes out and says Martial doesn't want to travel, doesn't want to be part of the squad, there's got to be something in that.
Yeah, he wouldn't say it otherwise, would he?
There's got to be something in it.
He couldn't say it otherwise, could he?
No, and Martial can try and get out of it by saying, well, actually, I didn't actually say that. I didn't mean that. I would play, but... It's kind of a play on words, I think, that I would suspect the truth is. Martial might have gave us some awful body language, like, I don't want to... But not actually say, I don't want to play for this team, because then he can go back and say that as a retort. So my initial thought is that he's fed up. He wants to leave the football club. He's chucked in some attitude. He might have said something, gestured something, didn't want to whatever. And the managers took it as, don't seem to want to play, didn't want to be part of it, so I'm not going to include him. I mean, I can't imagine.
Yeah, I said the same. I can't
imagine.
He couldn't do that. And also, that also would get to the dressing room, because there'd be somebody in the dressing room would know that Martial didn't, and then he said that, and it would leave him in a really almost untenable position. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll keep our eye over that over the next couple of days if anything more comes out of it. But again, just unnecessary off-the-field stuff that the Manchester United don't need right now. They've got to concentrate on getting results and winning games. Talking about winning games and the importance of them, Everton travelled to Carrow Road to Norwich with 2-0 down. I think it was 20 minutes in the game. Michael Keane own goal, and then 92 seconds later, Adam Eder scores a goal. Richarlison comes on as sub second half, gets one back. You're wondering if Everton can turn this around. They don't. The final whistle goes. Rafa's booed by the Everton fans. They put up a sign of Benitez, get out of our club. We talked about it after the show and says he's in hot water. We'll have to see how this one pans out. And then when we came in this morning, Rob, a lot of news that there was a meeting at the football club. Decision would be made. And it's broken that Rafa's been sacked. No real surprise, mate, after that, is there?
No, there's no surprise. Wow. You got, it's one win in the last 13 in the Premier League.
Yeah.
The start was pretty good. The Everton start with the new manager was pretty good. At the time, I thought it was a solid choice. Give him some time, experienced, kind of get the club going in a probably a slow but a stable progression. And it just didn't work out that way. No. And just as a big picture, you look down the team, and I know there's had injuries, but even the team that's been playing is better than this.
Yeah.
It's better than this. And given the backdrop of what we know, Rob, I think you talked about on the air today, of what's happened on his watch.
Yeah.
It's pretty, it smacks of Everton changing decisions, changing minds. Marcel Brands was a director of football. They wanted to go down that avenue of let's stabilise, let's get an experienced director to bring in the good football, the good players, and then the coaches will come and coach that group. That was put under severe pressure when Rafa Benitez turned up. So Marcel Brands left the football club, citing differences at the boardroom level. So he's been undermined by, we assume, Rafa Benitez. Of course, you throw in there the former Liverpool manager. You throw in there a loss to Norwich City. You throw in there a player, one of the best players at the football club, falling out with Coutinho, that ends up leaving for a reasonable fee. And the pragmatic, unentertaining football, and the fact that the team is better than what we're seeing. There's too many reasons, Rob, where I'd love to say, and I often say, bit early, come on, let's be sure, but I can't offer any defence to Rafa Benitez when he's asked for power. People have left, they've given it him, and now, like only a few weeks after, he has obviously been fired. It does come back to the board, the leadership, the ownership of trying to, and just trying to think of the future, of trying to hire a football expert director to run it all. And to say and not select managers that are going to undermine you. And God, it is a mess. And we all feel sorry for them. We know they've got great plans for this stadium in a few years' time. We know we know Goodison Park. We've played there many times. We know what it means to the Everton fans, and they must be pulling their hair out at the way that the club is being ran, Rob. I think that's more the issue. And when we say how you run a club, well, you're talking about decision-making from the ownership to a football expert who then decides on recruitment in coaches and players and goes from there.
I think the big thing for me, Rob, in this, and you say, listen, we've all got friends who are Everton fans. We've played at the ground. We know what that football club means, and I think it's important to say that this hasn't just happened. People because he was a Liverpool manager. Everton fans want the best for their football club and want to play decent football. They want decent football being played on a weekly basis, and he hasn't been able to do that. So whether he was a Liverpool manager or not has made no big difference to this. It hasn't pushed him through the door or anything. He had the chance, as you said, to keep them top 10 at least would have been okay for now. To be pushing towards 8, 7 would have been brilliant for now. But he wasn't able to do that. And the team are better than that. And people will say, we didn't spend much money. There's enough quality in that group, and he's been waiting for someone to come back, and we've seen Calvert-Lewin now, Richarlison's back, and one or two others, Gray's playing. There's enough talent there for this team that shouldn't be going to Norwich, who've only scored 8 goals all season, and be 2-0 down after 20 minutes. So there's a big job for somebody at Everton to do now in terms of filling that void. We're hearing that Big Duncan Ferguson is probably going to be given an interim role, as he has done in the past. I'm sure that'll be, let's see how things go. He may end up getting it till the end of the season. Although I'm not sure they could get pulled into a relegation fight, but they're not totally clear of it, Rob, at the moment. think it's
absolutely not.
6-point gap in this.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah, they got 19 points, and they're going to want to get to 38, 39 points. There's a lot of points they got to win. I think Big Dunk Ferguson might end up taking it, Rob, to the end of the season.
Yeah.
And maybe the club can clear their heads a little bit and try and figure out the best way forward. It almost, are we at a point? It almost doesn't matter who the manager is, Rob. It's gonna, and unless the
structure and things,
the leadership,
right in place.
The parts above the coach, the manager, then. You know, and talking about people, I know Wayne Rooney's been mentioned, Rob, and I think that what he's doing at Derby now is pretty amazing, trying to keep that football club in the league when everybody else has deserted Derby County. I'd be surprised if he would leave them to come to Everton right now. Again, in the summer, it's always a better time to find a different manager or as close to the end of the season as you can so you can get through a pre-season. You know, I hear Graham Potter's name mentioned, Rob.
I like that one.
Yeah. I mean, is it a good job to take for Potter? I think, first of all, I think he's going to attract clubs that are doing way better than Everton. Of course, I know how big Everton is, and I know potentially what could happen there. Wow. I would be surprised if Graham Potter would jump into this situation where so many others have failed. Yeah, I
maybe if he's got the strength and some power where he can go in and say, "I'll come in," but on this guy come, you know, this is my technical guy and blah 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 blah. I just think if you're Graham Potter, Rob, he came back into English football. He was at Swansea for a short while, did well, got a job to Brighton, done well. You get Everton and have a chance to do well in that new stadium, 50,000 people. Competing with Liverpool on a regular basis.
Well, yeah, but you're talking about that's so far away, mate.
No, but you've got to get the right guy to start building the things. It's an ownership group with money. Okay, it needs a sort out. But this guy doesn't look like he's scared of hard work, rolling his sleeves up. You know he'll play the right football. He's young. He's ambitious. If I'm Graham Potter, Rob, I would be thinking about it if it was me. I got to say, you maybe not so. Everton job doesn't come round to Graham Potter that often. I know and he's a great coach. Which other job? He wouldn't. Tottenham, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea. I don't think he gets any of those jobs, even with all the work he's done. Spurs, possibly. But they've had a chance to get him then. And
I hear you, and it's a good argument, right? It's a good debate. It's just whether, and I'm going on this side of this line. The club is so much of a mess. It wouldn't do him any favours to go in. Possibly. If they're less in a mess, I get it. If they've got if they've got a strong director of football in there with a little bit of track record of doing some good work, brilliant. Because of all the things you just said, I couldn't agree more about Everton as a football club. What a flipping great club to go and manage. Absolutely. But it's such a mess right now. He's on a crest of a wave right now, Graham Potter. With what he's doing, with what he's built, with how he's doing it, he goes in there and to try and turn that around and to, I think it's interesting.
I hear you, but it's the same Brighton fans who a month ago or so booed him when they drew a game at home and he wasn't happy. So we'll see. Obviously, there's plenty of time to go, plenty of candidates. I'm sure many more names.
Rob, before you move on, mate, I just got to ask a question. Rafa Benitez, where does he go from here? Are we going to see him in the Premier League
It's
again?
a very good question. I tell you where we could see him from here, and if you want a sneaky $10, he'd be the Watford manager before the end of the season. Boom, boom. There you go.
Always chucks one in.
There you go. Let's move it on and chuck it on to Upton Park and the London Stadium. West Ham in good form took on a Leeds United team that are struggling with injuries. No Patrick Bamford. He was expected he'd be back. I've got to be honest, Rob, I was a little surprised by this one. West Ham beat Leeds in the Cup last week. Couldn't do it in the league, and it was a Jack Harrison hat-trick, a player that struggled for goals a little bit this year after doing so well last. 3-2 win to to Leeds United. A bit disappointing this for David Moyes, and the great chance he had at the end, and I'm sure the Jared Bowen sort of tried to chest the ball in and it's come across in the 6-yard box. Of all people, right man, right place, wrong finish for Bowen, and with that went the chance of the 3 points.
Yeah, just a surprising result. I mean, amazing. Like, we watched them earlier in the week, and you're like super impressed with them. Jared Bowen was incredible in the game. I just it flicked over, Robert. Did it come too quickly? Of course.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It got a little nick off a defender, didn't it?
Got a little nick,
and I don't think he adjusted it. Yeah,
and slow motion, like, well, here's the ball. Go on, then bend down and hit it. It looks awful, but in real time, I don't know whether it just came to him a bit quickly. That chance there. This is the Premier League, Rob, and this is Leeds United, and this is what Leeds, and this is kind of like the conundrum of Leeds. Is everybody okay having end-to-end crazy games? Yeah, I am. That's what he's done. That's what he's taught these players to do. Yeah, there's going to be some flipping shellackings and some bad defeats, but you're going to get some random wins and some crazy open games where they do take their chances, even without Patrick Bamford. Of course, they're still missing. But brilliant for Leeds. I mean, because Leeds are still are still in a precarious situation in the league, Rob. And of course, with them, you never know what you're going to get. But this is the upside of Leeds. This isn't let's change things. Let's be a bit more defensive and sit back and try and be a bit more normal in a team that's struggling in the league. This is, it doesn't matter. Let's carry on. And this is a good day for Leeds. They're going to have some bad ones. Yeah. But I think they're going to have enough good ones to stay in the league and make the philosophy justifiable. Of course, they need Bamford back and a couple of others to really be at their best and to see what we did last year and have a little bit of that form. But yeah, I think two sides to this game, Rob. Well done, Leeds. Jack Harrison, who, by the way, came to where he is now in a different way, Rob, didn't he? He went to school in America.
Yeah.
He joins the
NYFC, doesn't
he?
Man City.
And he's kind of come all around a little bit and end up now back in the Premier League scoring goals for Leeds United. So fair play to Jack Harrison and fair play to Leeds in this one. Yeah,
well played. Disappointing for David Moyes' West Ham team, going really well and obviously looking to cement that place in fourth spot. We'll just have to see with West Ham now. I hope there's no drop-off. I'd love to see them be challenging in there for that fourth spot between now and the end of the season. With those other teams, obviously Arsenal, Spurs, Manchester United, underneath them at the moment, waiting for those spots. But yeah, good win for Leeds. I'm sure they're going to be okay, and then they'll look at things in the summer. Just worry a bit about Rafinha, Robbie. Played particularly well a game for Leeds, helped make the winning goal. I think there might be one or two sniffing around him. He's a real talent. I mean, Leeds are ambitious, and if they want to move on, they've got to keep players like that and add to them and build with them. But I can see one or two people maybe keeping their eye on him when the summer comes around. I think he hasn't yet signed a long-term contract. So we'll see how that one goes. Yeah, I think they won't want to sell him. There's no noise. There's not much noise now, Rob, around the player himself wanting to get away. I just think he's playing so well. He's left-sided and what he can do. There might be one or two looking at him. Let's move it on to Newcastle Watford. So Newcastle have got Kieran Trippier in the door. Got Chris Wood in the door. Chris Wood made his debut wearing the big number 20 for Newcastle United up at the Toon Army. The atmosphere was buzzing, as you'd expect. 50,000 going crazy. And Newcastle eventually get themselves ahead, Rob. And you're thinking, exactly what Eddie Howe needs, another win. To add to the one win of the season, Woods in the fold, maybe looking for a couple of defenders, and we can start to build. And as ever, I think they've got more points from winning positions now than anybody else in the league. They give away a pretty cheap goal, good header from Pedro, but it's a ball into the box that you'd like to think should be defended. And it ended very flat, Rob, and Eddie Howe looked visibly a little bit shaken by the result and the consequences, really, of what that meant. I mean, this is how Eddie Howe plays, Rob, isn't it? And you're right. I mean, St James's. I mean, the atmosphere in there, new players playing, Chris Wood involved, put himself about, getting a few opportunities. Kieran Trippier looking like $1 million, very calm, very composed, very almost leading straight away the way he's pointing and cajoling his teammates. And some of the football was great. So Maximum does his thing. Again, from nowhere, cuts inside. God, he's such a dangerous player coming in from that outside left. He gets the goal. And in the second half, Rob, I'm making my notes. I'm watching the game, making my notes. And I'm saying, again, this is Eddie Howe. I should know it. But it's like, wow,
Newcastle really going for the second.
Yeah.
Really going for the second. Risky, question mark. Yeah. And, of course, not many minutes later, towards the end of the game, João Pedro with a brilliant header, by the way, Rob. I thought it was a fantastic header.
Brave as well.
So, in this situation for Eddie Howe, I get it. There's two ways of going, Rob. There's you put the brakes on a little bit. You pack out midfield a little bit. You defend a little bit deeper. You see out the. And some would argue, were you inviting pressure from Watford? That's one way of trying to see out the game at 1-0. Yeah. The other way, of course, as which Eddie Howe did, is to try and score another, and to be expansive and to go for it again. And the atmosphere, they all get taken away with it a little bit. Yeah. Flying forward, I just saw Watford chances, Rob, throughout the game. The Watford forwards looked, for me, like they were always thought they were going to get chances. Yeah. They always had opportunities. Yeah. With Josh King playing in the central, Emmanuel Dennis, and Pedro, sorry, in my throat. They're just a dangerous front three. And in a Newcastle philosophy of still attacking, even when they're winning, it's just smacks of risky policy. And they drop the 2 points, Rob. And again, we can keep looking at the changes and the signings and the new players. I'm sure there's going to be more. I mean, they've still got to find ways to win games and go on runs and win a few games on the spin. This is a body blow, mate. Watford, in and around them. They're at home. They're flying. They've got new players.
Played 20 games now, Rob. 20 games they've played. They've got 18 games left.
They've won one game in 20. Yeah. They've won one game in 20.
They've won one game in, I think, 22 all competitions. One game this season in all competitions. Gone out the FA Cup against Cambridge. I mean, it's risky for Eddie, and obviously bodies have got to come in, and listen, he's going to do it his way. But I'm telling you what, Rob, this is right down to the wire. This is down to that Burnley game that we talked about at Turf Moor, the last game when Chris Wood might be going back to face his Burnley team he's left. I would say right now they would hope they've still got a chance by then to not be down.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
I just see the game, Rob, and I'm like, okay, Newcastle should win this game.
Yeah.
Their points then becomes 14 points.
Yeah, it's huge. It's a huge win, isn't it?
They're going to kick out of this situation.
Yeah, it's a huge one. I still have them in my bottom three. Unfortunately, I still think that they're careless, Rob, and they don't defend well enough. Yes, there's goals, and the way Eddie wants to do it is brave. Some might say a little bit foolhardy, but we'll see how this one goes. But many more dramas, I think, to come at Newcastle between now and the end of the season. Let's move it on to, I think they call it the M23 Derby, Brighton versus Crystal Palace.
Yeah, on the Friday.
On the Friday night. Decent game of football. Again, Brighton with, as you'd expect, more possession, more shots. Couldn't quite get themselves a goal. A penalty saved from Jack Butland. Pascal Gross with the penalty that Jack Butland saves. And then Palace go 1-0 through Conor Gallagher. With a good finish game for him, just continues to get goals, but Brighton find a way back in the game.
Yeah, I think, not too much to say about this, Rob. We know it's a derby. We know it's always a good atmosphere. We know what some of the histrionics of both on and off the field recently. I enjoyed it, the game.
It's a good game, yeah.
I just, again, you can't help thinking of Brighton. They put themselves in positions to win games, control games. Don't take it. Yeah. Don't take chances, missing penalties. Then they allow Palace back into the game with that late own goal. So, listen, 1-1, fair result. They're mid-table. They're both doing great. I like both managers. I like both the teams. Particularly again, we know about Graham Potter's football that he's playing. He's been in the job longer than Patrick Vieira, and Vieira is on a similar path to try and produce that football at similar clubs, I suppose, in terms of their spending, possibly, Rob. Brighton's further on, and for me, Brighton aren't winning the games you expect, and their play looks like they deserve. So, probably a fair result, Rob, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty fair result. And it's funny, Rob, as I was doing this game and I made a note on both teams, I said, well, how both these teams could do with a 15-goal-a-season striker. Brighton, somebody finish off all their good work. Palace, the way they play and with pace and counter-attack, somebody in the box. Edward started. Mateta came on, actually brought a bit of physicality. talk about Benteke. He's been linked to Burnley now, from Palace's point of view. Mope, continues to be, but you just feel like they could do with a real focal point to that attack, to be the end piece to all that good play that Graham Potter's team did. But, yeah, you're right. I thought it was a pretty fair result. Good game. Like both coaches, both managers, and we'll see how they'll go. But both will be fine this season. Wolves was the other game we need to touch on. Wolves 3, Southampton 1. Good result for this Wolves team, who just seem to be efficient, Rob. Just go about their business, seem to get it done. Get the goals, Jimenez penalty. We got a Adama Traore goal, my friend. Missed a great chance before and then broke away and gets the third goal at the time. And we probably have to give a little mention to James Ward-Prowse, don't we, in the free kick. And the quality that this guy just brings is like incredible at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, normally his free kicks, Rob, are closer. Yeah, and they're a little curler, a little bender. Yeah, the little bendy one. He's side footed. He's just trying to get his foot around the ball, impart that side spin to it. Yeah. So this one was like, wow. I mean, we haven't seen that one in the lock many times, Rob, where he's hitting through it to try and create a bit of knuckle.
Yeah, that's Ronaldo style.
Cool. So the fact that he pulled that off is like, God, I mean, just haven't seen many of those. No, I haven't anyway. No. Maybe, but the Ward-Prowse ones are like 22 yards out from a slight angle, boom. I mean, almost automatic.
I heard a couple of people saying on the radio last night, saying it's the best free kick I've ever seen. They were at the game.
Oh, blimey.
They were at the game. Someone was saying it's the best free. He knuckled and went. So it's the best free kick they've ever seen. Like, wow. Maybe need to watch it again.
It's a beauty. I've watched it many times. It is an absolute beauty in the top corner there with the power. Unfortunately for Southampton, it wasn't a good day for them. Yeah. And they've had plenty of good days. And I think we like what's happened at Southampton. And there's new ownership there, which will be interesting. The club will be absolutely in a great position now, I think, with new owners, smart directors managing the recruitment side of things, even more smart than what they've had in the past. But yeah, it's a good day for Wolves. Wolves are a team that don't score any goals. They score so few, they concede so few. Kind of really unusual numbers for them. 17 scored and 15 conceded, and that's that's included in this game with 3 goals scored. So really one of the league's lowest scorers. So good for them. Good for Conor Cody.
1 point behind Manchester United, my friend. Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Yeah. Bruno Lage, mate, a manager that could be going places.
Well, my other last shout, my other crazy shout for Everton, Ralph Hasenhüttl would not be the worst appointment. I know they've been that route before with Koeman. Ronald Koeman.
Yeah. Did I also hear you chuck in on the air today? Jose,
we gotta love Jose. We want Jose in the league just for podcast value. I'm not sure Everton fans can live with us. They know for podcast value we want Jose, but that's gonna be interesting to see who does get that Everton job. Listen, mate, on the weekend when we lost the North London Derby to COVID, plenty of people not happy with that decision, but it was business as usual for Man City, beating Chelsea, winning 12 straight games now in the league. Man United gave up a 2-0 lead against Villa to draw 2-2. And even with new signings, Newcastle continue to drop points from winning positions. We're going to be back on Thursday, that's January the 20th, when we'll look back at a couple of those rearranged games in the league. And we'll look back at the Arsenal-Liverpool semi-final in the League Cup to see who meets Chelsea in February's final. But for now, I'm Earle. He's Mustoe, together with the 2 Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.